With us in the studio is Senator Anthony Adefuye. Good morning.
Good morning.
And good to have you on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you.
Now, all of a sudden, the drums or the voices calling for restructuring and true federalism seem to be getting louder and louder in persons of Atiku and all the rest of them. Yes, there has been a national confab in 2014, and the last administration actually said that we're going to implement. But alas, here we are. Nothing has been done about it. Talk to us about your feelings about this call for restructuring.
Well, I think that we made some recommendations, but restructuring is what I don't know. When we got to the confab, we in the West went with the idea that we want regional government. But there were problems. The people in Benue said they were not ready to be going to Kaduna again to take orders. Even the people in Ondo State said they were not ready to be going to Ibadan to take orders. So that was the problem we had. So it was never recommended. But what we now said, those states who wish to have a region on their own, maybe 6 states, and you will self-fund it, you can come together and fund it. That was the decision of the confab. These states, 6 states can come together and have a union. But this union will fund itself. There will be no special allocation coming from the federal government account to fund it. We also went to create additional 18 states because there were a lot of agitation for creation.
Before we go into the recommendations of the confab, there were arguments that the confab itself was foisted. We had a guest yesterday who used the word foisted, that the conference was foisted on the people. And now, with the call for restructuring, does it really show that there are different shades of gray as it is, that even what we have as a recommendation of the confab is not the true yearnings of the Nigerian people?
That's not true. If you look at those who were at the conference, it encompasses everybody. The lame, the blind, the market women, everybody were all there. And I think this document is good for Nigeria. Even if you change the conference, even if you have regional government today, you're still going to have agitators. Some people are just professional agitators, that's all. Once it is not them who is invited to take part, then it is not good. This is what we have. But for this conference, it took everything as it should be. All the decisions were unanimous, most of them were unanimous, and so on and so forth. Why the last government did not implement it is what I don't know. Because he had a year to send it to the National Assembly, which he didn't do. So why he didn't do it, I don't know. But the conference, everything in this recommendation is good for Nigeria.
Are you saying then that recommendations like 54 states, the confab, mayoral status for the FCT, the finance minister laying out the budget rather than the president, that these are, these are good recommendations, especially 54 states. I mean, it's been argued over and over again that Nigeria, many of the states, 36 right now, are actually not viable. So why would the confab now recommend 54 states?
Thank you. Now, we need to come into a unanimity. What we wanted to create were 2 additional states in the south and then 2 additional states in the north. Then the East now came with the problem that they have only 5 states. Even if we give them 1 additional state, it is 6, and the West will have 7, and the North will have so much. But we now say to them, look, if you look at the 3 regions, from the Old West, only 9 states have been created. From the Old East, 11 states have been created. Therefore, it doesn't matter whether you have 10 states or you have 1 state. And you know the Northwest has 7 states. So these were the arguments there. And one way or the other, they appointed some elders who came out and said, okay, they should make it 9 states per zone. That was what spoiled that recommendation. I have never agreed that we should. I was one of the opposition of creation of
more states.
Of 9 states, not more states.
Okay, 9 states.
I was there fighting for creation of Ijebu State and creation of 1 state in Oyo State. That's what we wanted to create. Okay. And then we create 2 states.
All right. Your recommendations when it comes to the revenue formula sharing was to have the federal government have 42.5%, 35.1 to the states, where the local government has 22.5.
Yes.
As it is. But the state, you're aware, just a few months ago, made another proposal saying the federal government is not the one making the money. The states are making the money, for instance. The states have more loads to carry. So why should the federal government get a larger share of the national cake?
No, it's not true. When you have a federation with a weak center, it will collapse. You must have a federation with a strong center. The army, the navy, all the security, they are all the collection of these funds before they are divided, all controlled by the center, the central bank, the police, all controlled by the center. Now, we even suggested that each state should have its own police. And this is the reaction from some people. People in the Middle Belt said, no. When we had local government police, they suffered from the hands of the majority Fulanis and Hausas who were using that local police to do arrests anyhow. So they refused. And at the end of the day, we have to say, look, any state who can afford it can have their own police in addition to the federal police to ensure that you take care of your state. So most of these things they are saying now, when you get the people together, you find out that people are just talking, but the majority of the people, what they wanted is different.
But if and you recommended in addition that ASPs should actually come from those states, they should be indigents of those states.
That's right.
Is that not, state police in effect?
No, they will still be under the control of the IG. Okay. But what we are saying is that an indigent of that state, we know the state better than bringing an Igbo man to Maiduguri or bringing a Maiduguri man to Enugu. So look, if you are going to have IG, let it be from that zone. So let the IG or the DPO be from that area, and then let the commissioner of police be from that state. These were our recommendations.
All right,
it's purely based on the fact that we wanted the police to be aware, of the area, and to also know the culture of the people and be part of that culture.
Okay, let's just revisit the issue of the revenue sharing formula once again.
Yes.
If the conference was held today, based on the realities of what we have in the states, where the states can no longer pay their salary, would you still suggest that the larger share still goes to the federal government?
Well, if you look at what is there, the federal government did not have the larger shares. If you add the state and the local government together, they have the larger shares of 55 or 57.5%. That's what we recommended. The state and the local government. That is what we recommended. So if you look at what the recommendation, it actually reduced the allocation to the federal government and increased the one to the state. Now let's come to the issue of these states not being able to pay salaries. I will give you an example. In the month of June 1914, when we were in the conference, Akwa Ibom got 86 billion, for that month. The whole Southwest states got 23 billion. The whole Southeast states got 21 billion. Yes, Akwa Ibom is one of those who cannot pay salaries. So it's in our people, it's in us. If corruption is there, there's nothing you can do.
So the question really is not about the structure of Nigeria, whether
no,
it is federal,
it's the people.
And what have you. It is really about the people.
Yes.
And like our guest said on the show yesterday, there is a need for attitudinal change.
Okay. That is all we need.
Right.
Look, most of the people who are claiming they want regional government, they are people of my age above, because we were brought up in a regional government status. Do you understand? Now, how can you be in 2016 and be asking for regional government? Where in the world do they practice regional government now? The states should federate, which means more people have contribution to the center than just a zone. If you say 6 zones now, once you pick anybody from that zone, it's okay.
Well, the region seemed to have worked in the past, and that, may explain why Nigerians are saying if it's not broken, don't fix it. Since this is what worked before, why don't we just go back to it?
Now, I don't want to go
Yes.
into a situation whether the region worked before or not. Well, what I want you to know is that at that time, only 15–20% of the populace participated in government. Now everybody they are all participating. I told you that even when we made those of us from the West, the states from the West, did not even agree that we should have a regional government. I remember quite well that even Lagos said they are not ready to be going to Ibadan again to take orders. So things have changed. Things have changed from whatever it was, and people must change with it.
You were a member of this national confab in 2014.
Yes.
In your reading of the attitude of all the people who had one thing or the other to contribute, did you see patriotism in them? Or what was your reading of the whole, the mood or the sense behind some of the recommendations that different people, brought to the table?
Well,
was it really about Nigeria? Was Nigeria at the center of all of this discourse?
Let me tell you, summarily,
yes,
it's all about Nigeria. There is no doubt that at the conference, people were trying to make sure that their side get more than whatever they are getting now. There is no doubt. We came to what do you call it, 13% derivation. They wanted it increased, and so on and so forth.
And you actually, your recommendation actually increased it.
We did not increase it.
Oh no! If what we have is correct, was it what the recommendation on making it like as 18 to 17%?
No, we did not increase it.
It wasn't increased.
No.
Okay.
It's 13%. Now the reason was this: when you take Amnesty, NDDC, and all this together, you find that the South-South region takes more than 51% of the total revenue. That was what it covered at Confab, and that was why it was not increased. Now, if you say, when you look on television, and some of you journalists, I don't know why you do so, you go and take a village in the South-South and say they are being marginalized, they are suffering, and so. Come and take the villages in Lagos too. Go to Makoko. There are worse areas there that you can show. But the fact is that these people, when they are giving state funds, they embezzled it. Some, they overtrade. That means they have more projects than they could fund. Some, their predecessors have taken loans, and the deductions from those their allocation were not taken into this before having more commitments. So the issue, if you look some states that are poor. Let's take Osun, for instance, which started not being able to pay. When the whole thing was published, I was shocked that Osun was only owing 2 months' salary, and Akwa Ibom was owing 7 months' salary. Akwa Ibom earns more than anybody in this, more than any state.
So the real issue here is corruption?
Corruption.
Okay, and your recommendation for fighting corruption says, according to what we have, we stand corrected if we're wrong, that there won't be no more plea bargains. If you're arrested, you're presumed guilty. Is it true?
Well, it's part of it, but the thing is that we say we should set up courts.
Special courts.
Special courts to deal with corruption.
Yes.
Which you have a chief judge and so on and so forth to deal with corruption. And we also recommended some punishment that must go with corruption. So that it's unlike now, where when you steal 1 billion, you know that, okay, you can plea bargain, give them 500 million, and then you take 500 million and share your own 500 million with the security people. And then you are free. So if you look carefully into these recommendations, you can't fault them. You can't fault them. So to arrive at this recommendation, sometimes it took...
All right, Fadeshola Ashotinwa is ready to bring us the news at the top of the hour. Over to you now.
News updates now. Tributes continue to pour in for late former Super Eagles captain and coach Stephen Keshi. President Muhammadu Buhari described him as a great sportsman, football player, coach and citizen, someone who gave his country his all. FIFA President Gianni Infantino also expressed his sympathy on the loss. And CAF President Issa Hayatou hailed Keshi as the only African trainer to have steered a team to the second round of the FIFA World Cup. Yesterday, the House of Representatives observed a minute silence in his honor. Keshi reportedly died of a cardiac arrest. The Niger Delta Avengers have blown up another oil well belonging to oil major Chevron. The militant group claimed responsibility for the attack on its Twitter handle and said it would not enter into any agreement with the government. The group has blown up no fewer than half a dozen oil facilities since February. It has also vowed to reduce Nigeria's oil production to zero. And the army says it will hold fire in line with the presidential directive on the ceasefire in the operation against Niger Delta militants, but it warns that it will be left with no alternative than to take what it describes as definitive action if attacks on pipelines continue. The General Officer commanding 82 Division gave the warning after a strategic meeting of top army chiefs in Abuja. The trial of the former Minister of Interior, Abba Moro, was on Wednesday stalled over objections raised by the defense team on the admissibility of the document by the prosecution. The prosecution had attempted to tender a document, which was a letter from a former Comptroller General of Immigration, through a witness, but counsel to Abba Moro objected, claiming the original copy of the said document be tendered. Arguments by the opposing counsels led the trial judge, Nnamdi Dingba, to adjourn the trial to the 10th of June. The former Minister of Interior and 4 others are facing an 11-count charge that includes money laundering and defrauding job applicants. And Justice Nnamdi Dingba of the Federal High Court in Abuja has granted bail to the cousin of former President Goodluck Jonathan, Robert Azibola, and his wife Stella. They were granted bail in the sum of 500 million naira each, and 2 sureties who must own properties either in Asokoro or Maitama districts of Abuja. The sureties must show evidence of tax payment. The accused persons are to be remanded in Kuje prison, pending the fulfillment of their bail conditions. And labor leaders in Ekiti State say they will continue the ongoing indefinite industrial action until government pays 3 months out of the backlog of workers' salary. The strike by Ekiti State civil servants has crippled activities at all state and local government offices, as well as ensured all public and primary secondary schools across the state are shut. And that's the news update. Back to you, Ngozi and Busolana.
All right. Thank you, Fadi.
Okay, we've been discussing the 2014 National Conference convened by the last administration and if the recommendations fit into present realities. We have Senator Anthony Adefuye here in the studio, and we've been talking with him for the last 30 minutes. Now, we touched on the issue of guilty until proven innocent that the Confab 2014 recommended. Is that not open to, abuse, where you can actually have political victimization if somebody thinks, I need to take you out because you're a threat to me, and, they take advantage of this provision?
No, that's not true. Now, if you look at the laws, it looks like it protects the criminal. It protects the criminal most of the time. Even if you look at the law, I stole your money, and then you have to prove me guilty first. Before you stole money, you have been accused, you are guilty. Prove yourself innocent. Prove yourself innocent. If you come and tell the former NSA now that he's not guilty, therefore he should go for medical checkup, will he come back?
Good question.
Will he come back? That's the thing. No, you stole money. You have been accused you stole money. Prove yourself that you did not steal the money. That's all we have said. And it is not the first place where it is being practiced. This is probably the style now almost all over the world.
That's interesting. We'll do more research on that to find out what obtains presently as far as that's concerned. Let's bring you further background to this now. Springing from a renewed militancy in the Niger Delta to the struggle by the indigenous people of Biafra for a sovereign state, insurgency in the northeast, and most recently attacks by nomadic herdsmen in different communities, there have been calls for a new Nigeria.
These agitations have drawn attention to the 2014 National Conference report, which sought to address some of these issues. After Nigeria's independence in 1960, there were a number of conferences that sought to address some of the underlying issues. Let's take a look at some of them.
Now, the 1978 Constituent Assembly had a membership of 230 people and met for 9 months. Most of the decisions taken at that conference formed the basis for the writing of the U.S. adopted 1979 Constitution, which I guess yesterday said had a bit of a military, some military injection into it. Perhaps that's why they think it's not working the way it should. But next is the 1994 to 1995 National Constitutional Conference, organized by the late dictator Sani Abacha. The conference had a membership of 371 people who met for 12 months. That's a whole year. And the 2005 National Political Reform Conference was made up of 400 delegates, and they met for 5 months. The last national conference was held in 2014 and inaugurated by former President Goodluck Jonathan on March the 17th, 2014. There were 492 members split into 20 committees, and the conference lasted 4 months. Now, let's look at some of the issues discussed at that conference. 1. Forms and structures of government, devolution of powers, revenue sharing and resource control, states, local governments creation, fiscal federalism, boundary adjustment, immunity clause, land tenure act, state police, gender equality, amongst others. So at the end of the conference, 663 resolutions were reached. Now, according to members, the recommendations were to engender improvement in the political, economic and social structures and the overall regeneration of the country. But the report was not implemented by the Jonathan administration, and it is yet to be implemented by the Buhari administration. As a matter of fact, what we're reading right now, according to some reports, that this president may not open the recommendations. The APC chairman said there's nothing like that in the roadmap for new Nigeria. Afemi Adesina says there's nothing like that on the roadmap. That's the manifesto of the APC. So the call for restructuring may not come anytime soon. So some of the recommendations also includes revenue allocation is first. The
report proposes that the federal government gets 42.5%, we told you that earlier, of national income, while states get 35%, local governments 22.5%, which is an improvement on the current sharing formula. And this will ensure that more funds get to the states and local government.
Next is power rotation. The report recommends that the presidency should be rotated among the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. Likewise, the governorship post should rotate among the 3 senatorial zones in each state. And then the forms of government. The conference recommended the modified presidential system that combines the presidential and parliamentary systems of government, by which the president shall pick the vice president from the legislature.
Remember, the guest we had yesterday was advocating the College of Presidents. Okay, so quite a number of recommendations there. It's not part of it, but the conference also recommended the removal of the immunity clause for the executive and the special courts be established to handle corruption cases.
Now, on independent candidacy, it recommended that every Nigerian who meets the specified condition in the Electoral Act should be free to contest elections as an independent candidate. On pilgrimage, the conference recommended that there should be no government sponsorship of Christian or Muslim pilgrimages to the Holy Lands. It also resolved that churches and mosques should begin to pay tax to government. Now, that's a very interesting one.
Indeed, Kaduna State is already implementing that, and the federal government actually says no more sponsorship. If you want to go to the Holy Land, it will be on your own.
It should be on your own account.
You pick up the tab. So the report recommended the creation of states police because Nigeria, with its enormous population of more than 170 million people and big territory, is too large to be controlled by the Abuja-based federal police.
On resource control derivation principle, fiscal federalism, the conference recommended the setting up of a technical committee to determine the appropriate percentage on resource control derivation principle, fiscal federalism.
Creation of new states. Another recommendation of the report is the creation of 18 new states equally spread around the country. 3 per geopolitical zone and an additional state in the southeast. It also suggested the states wishing to merge can do so if certain conditions are met. And our guest here, Senator Adefuye, says is not in support of that number of states, just few states actually. Okay,
now the economic realities in Nigeria today and agitations from different groups who feel they have been neglected for too long and their interests not duly represented gives a reason to this question now. How should the present administration treat the 2014 National Conference report? We will allow our guest answer that question, but at this point, this is where we should actually call Moses Omogana in to give us another perspective. Let's know what people are saying on social media.
Yes,
good morning, Moses.
Have a lot to say.
They
really
always do.
Good morning. Good morning, sir. Good morning. I am so in love with your Agbada.
And you look like a village headmaster, really.
Stop hating. Okay, so the hashtag Confab. Let's find out what people had to say. A lot, really, I must, suggest. Yes, very first comes from Amadi Fortune, and he says, those who pretend to solve Nigeria's numerous problems without looking at that Confab report are wasting their time. Very definitive comments there. And Lucky, if you can have it, Lucky says, implementation of that Confab report would solve 70% of Nigeria's problems, but PMB would rather keep the bullets flying. And I believe says the 2014 Confab touched on everything that could transform Nigeria. If implemented, most challenges we have today will be solved. And Kadri Mark says if they want to end Nigeria's problems, PMB should let go of his pride and implement Confab. And Wale says, I laugh at this, a referendum in Nigeria, a nation that spent so much on the Confab and has refused to look at it. Now, Sheikh Okin says Nigeria's political framework is faulty. For me, it defies any sensible reality obtainable in any book. Where's the Confab report? Yes, so that's those are the comments we have by Nigerians. Now, Mr. Anthony, or Senator Anthony rather, my colleagues have walked you through the recommendations and the discussions that we had in 2014. But all that is really going to be talk if there's a laid-back attitude to implement it. Now, we've heard, the president saying that, he's really not in the know of what was discussed and it should be in the archive. And some other stakeholders and, leaders are saying, are calling it, the PDP confab. Now, with this, there seems to be a political attitude, towards this, as opposed to what an average Nigerian, stands to gain from the recommendations made. How would you react to this sense, really?
Well, number one, it's not the PDP confab. I'm not a PDP man. I was APC, I was AC, and I was at the confab. So it's not a PDP confab. Well, I think the former president should have sent it to the National Assembly, and it would have been in the National Assembly that have been discussed. This government, this president, should send it to the National Assembly and let them look at it. Let me tell you, this government is working on this amendment too. If you remember that Buhari sent only 19 portfolios for ministers at the initial stage, and we recommended in this confab that there should be only 19 ministries. We recommended that all money collected should be in one purse. He's working on it. All money collected now goes to central bank rather than to individual banks and so on and so forth. He's working on it. It's a very useful document. Nobody can throw it away. It's a very useful document. I will say they should look at it again. Take whatever, you look at it, the immunity clause. Once you remove the immunity clause from this governor, they will stop stealing. But you have an immunity clause. When a new governor is elected, there is 3 months gap before he's sworn in. Do you understand? Now, because of the immunity clause, this governor can escape or do a lot of things within those 3 months. Now, if there is no immunity clause, you will be afraid to steal.
Yeah, because
you'll be the greatest problem we have now is corruption. And if you look at most of the money collected today, it's even more than the budget.
Wow.
Some of these governors are richer than their states. So it's the corruption we should look at, and all of us should come together and fight corruption. There is nothing wrong with our constitution. It only needs little amendments as we have done. American Constitution is about 200 years old, and maybe 3 amendments. If we amend, even if they take this one today, as we have said, we have had 3 confabs. The confabs will continue. Everybody, once you lose the election, you want a new realignment.
Okay,
you want a new restructuring because you have lost the election. That should not be the case.
All right. I guess we've pretty much established that the confab is really necessary in the process of reconstructing or restructuring Nigeria.
The confab is this confab. The recommendations here. Nobody can throw it away.
Okay, Moses.
Okay. Yeah.
There you go.
There we go.
You got your answers there.
See you later. Thank you, sir.
All right, and with that, of course, that is.
Okay, we're really at the tail end of this discussion on restructuring of Nigeria, and of course we have Senator Anthony Adefuye. So, in summing all of this up, how should this present administration handle the recommendations of the 2014 confab?
Well, they should send it to the National Assembly and let the National Assembly look at it. They are saying that they will put it into archives. They have not put this into archives, because most of the recommendations now are being implemented by this government. We recommended that the Accountant General of the Federation should be different from the Accountant General of the federal government. It's been implemented. So many things that we recommended here are in place. We recommended one important one, that the National Assembly should be on part-time. It should be on part-time. People should go on their businesses and then come back and then legislate. If you implement this, all this we need 10 cars, 50 cars, all this corruption generating from there will disappear. You know, you must look at this recommendation. Either you set up a committee to look at it or send it to the National Assembly and let the appropriate committee take it up and begin to dissect it one by one.
Okay. Look at some.
Yes, and indeed,
them,
there are so many other
everything.
recommendations of the Confab 2014 that we've not, had time to look at.
Yes.
But want to say thank you so much, Senator Anthony Adefuye, for your time.